meaning that you can count the actual set, what's in the set. And continuous is not counting, but measuring. So I'm going to give you some examples of measuring. And I'm going to go to the blank paper because I want to pull up a blank piece. I just can't get things to work this morning. There we go.
Get it together, Hubert.
I know, I suck. All right, so we're going to put discrete over here. And the reason I'm going over this extra is because you're going to have 2 or 3 questions on the test, and some of y'all are going to miss all 3 questions, all 2 or 3. And I don't know why. I really don't know why you miss them unless you just don't study. Because the height of a tree, that's one of the questions. Height of a tree. Anything meters, liters, grams. Meters represent distance, length. Liters is volume. And that's also area and volume. Grams is what? Weight. All of these things are measured. How about distance from AC to your home? That is continuous. Now let me ask you a question. What is time?
Continuous.
Why do you say that, Miss Dennis? Give me a reason.
Because time don't stop.
Give me an example of why time is continuous.
Because it don't stop.
Well, yes, and you can't locate it because it doesn't stop. You can't manipulate it. But let me ask you this. How many of you know people that show up at the exact same time? In other words, if you have a meeting at 10 o'clock, nobody's going to be early and nobody's going to be late. Everybody's going to show up at the same time. Does that happen?
Yes.
No, it doesn't. So what does that mean? Does that mean that people are terrible for showing up early? Or people are terrible for showing up late or on time? Or does it mean that there is a different look on time with each person?
Different look on time.
A different look on time. In other words, even though all of our phones have the correct time, called the atomic clock, and that everybody has the same time, people perceive time a little bit different. So, and time is measured. You can't count time. Now, can you count the hours that you work? Yes. You can count the hours, but you can't count time. Time is measured. How many of you have looked at one clock and it says 10 after 10? And then look at another clock and it says 12 after 10. Time is continuous. Eggs in the refrigerator. People / bodies in a room. Cars in a parking lot. Those are all discrete. So what I'm trying to tell you is, please don't make this hard. It's not. Blondes, brunettes, redheads. That's not continuous. That's discrete. Please don't make this difficult. There are 2 or 3 questions on the test. That is like, I don't know, 12 points. Please don't miss those questions. They're not supposed to be hard. They're supposed to be easy. Weight of a submarine. All of these things, I'm going to take my handy dandy pink highlighter, which I don't use unless it's important. All of these except for time. All of those, meters, liters, grams, they're measured. My vodka is about gone. Okay, now let's jump back on where we were. No coughing in class, please.
Questions?
No coughing in class. No coughing or sneezing. You're only allowed to breathe. Do you know we had a teacher that threw students out of class for yawning?
Seriously?
Yeah. If you yawned more than 3 times, this, I think this call, Mr. Michelle, this call is plagued, okay? For some reason, my audio just isn't working well at all. Is it okay if I just took, is everybody else, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, must be you, Mr. Michael. You can try to reboot your computer. That might work. But if you're pressed for time, I understand. Just check out the video. And you can check out the video for the other 120s if you want to as well. I got 3 of them this semester, so you take your pick. Let me get back to this. If you yawned more than 3 times, the teacher would throw you out of class, and that teacher was fired. I really, that's why I asked y'all questions about y'all's instructors. Some of these instructors are very, very smart, but in some ways they're very stupid. We had one teacher, this was a speech teacher, that showed a soft porn video to a speech class. Now, I want y'all to ask the question that I asked. What is the question that I asked when I heard about a speech teacher showing a scene from a soft porn film? What did I ask? Anybody want to? What the heck does a soft porn film have to do with speech? That's what I asked. And of course, the administration did, because he was fired on the spot. I don't understand some of these teachers. And if I did anything like that, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be just fired. They'd put me under the jail. I mean, that's the way my luck works. All right, random sample. What is a random sample? Everybody has, and I want you to highlight these 3 words right here. The same what? The same chance. Now, why do I have random sample in red and the rest of them in black? Because random sample is what you've been tested on. They're going to give you an example. Well, what if you put everybody's name in a balloon, and you put the balloons on a wall, and you throw a dart at the balloons? Does everybody have the same chance? Yes. That is a random sample. Okay? Sorry about that. I'll just let me turn it down. Okay, well. All right. So everybody has equal what? Chance. If everybody has an equal chance, you have a random sample. So make sure you write that equal chance or same chance. Please make sure you write that down.
So it's same/equal?
Yes. And what is a good example of a random sample? Names in a fishbowl or tickets in a fishbowl. You buy a ticket and they keep a copy of the ticket, and you keep a copy of the ticket, and they put their ticket in a fishbowl, and at the end of the event, they draw your ticket and the tickets match, you win the prize. That is a random sample.
Is a random sample like the lottery?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Hello, Miss Luss. Miss Luss decided to turn her video on. Thank you. I love seeing faces, okay? All right. Simple random sample. What is a simple random sample? The only difference between a random sample and a simple random sample is they are groups. Now, I'm going to pull down my handy dandy page right here and let y'all look at it. Let's say that Miss Lusk, Miss Dennis, and Miss Dees, I'm going to call that group A. And then I'm going to call Noble, Garcia, Salazar, and Wright, I'm going to call that group B. And then Owens, Macagina, and Johnson is group C. And Hamby, Bash, and McLean, I'm going to call group D. And then Hernandez, Yoakum, and Williams, I'm going to call group E. And then Sanderson, Adams, and Jones, I'm going to call group F. And then somebody just left the room. Well, we'll include Miss Hooper in that group F. And I put each group, group A, I put on a Post-it note. Group B, I put on a Post-it note. Group C, group D, group E, and group F. And I put those Post-it notes in a fishbowl, and I pick one of them. That is a simple random sample. A simple random sample sometimes deals with what? Not individuals, but what?
Groups.
Groups. Now let me make a note here. Some books do not recognize simple random sample. Some books say that simple random sample is equal to a random sample. Technically, it is, because each student still has the equal chance of being picked, except one's in a group setting and one's in an individual setting. So the random sample is individual and the group setting is simple random. But there are some books, and I think this book is one of them, or the 103 book is, I can't remember, that says that they're the same. A random sample is the same as a simple random sample. I will probably just test you on a random sample, but all you've got to remember is this. The random sample and simple random sample are both very good to use. They are very good to use. And some books even consider them the same thing. But the difference between the two is one is set up for groups, the other one is set up for individuals. Okay? And systematic random sample. Now, why do I have systematic random sample on the same page? Because there's like 5 or 6 of these things. The reason I have systematic on the page with these two, these are the most used as far as out of the gate. In other words, most of the time, if somebody's going to do a survey or any kind, they go with these 3 first. And they are in order as importance. Random sample, that's the best one. Simple random sample, you don't have a lot of Post-it notes, so you turn a random sample into a simple random sample, and you only use 5 Post-it notes instead of 20 or 30 Post-it notes. Systematic random sample, you stand outside of Anderson campus building at the front doors, and another person stands at the other exit down at the end of Anderson campus, and you both ask every 10th person if they drink tea, or if they drink water, or if they drink Coca-Colas, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, soda pops, whatever you want to call them, all right? Drinks, that's what we call them in around here. You want a drink? That usually means a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi. All right. But some of you perfect people, you don't call it that. You call it soda pop. Whatever. I've never, ever, ever called it that. Never. Since I was a kid, I didn't call it. You want a Coke? That means you want a drink. Nobody's going to say a word. Miss Dennis, what do you use? I bet you use soda pop, don't you?
No.
What do you call it?
A tonic.
A tonic?
Mm-hmm.
I think Miss Dennis is on drugs. I really do.
I wish.
I think she gets some of those drugs from that closet. I think that closet is a storeroom for drugs, and that's why she's always in there. All right. Excuse me. So, every 10th person. Now, why is that important? Well, see, if I have 40 people on my piece of paper, how many people how many people went through the doors? If I had 40 people on my piece of paper and I interviewed each 10th person.
400.
400, good. So that means I can write down in my report that 400 people went through the doors and I interviewed 40 because of every 10th person. Okay? So it does help you to do systematic. So those are 3 good ones.
What about systematic? I don't get it.
If you stand at the front door, you interview every 10th person. Every 10th person, you pull them to the side and you say, let me ask you a question for my survey.
Yeah.
Do you drink water, tea, or drinks? Okay? And they'll tell you, I drink water, and you write that down. Then you count 9 more people, and you pick the 10th person that comes out the door. Now, you could also apply that to a telephone book. Let's say you go in a telephone book, and on the telephone page, down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's the last name.
Mm-hmm.
You pick every bottom right-hand corner name in the telephone book. That's systematic. There's a pattern. There's a system. Do you understand that now, Miss Dennis?
A system with how the names are written in the phone book?
No, on who you're going to ask a question. Okay. Let me give you another example. Let's say that you're working at the hospital, and every 5th patient on the floor that you help, you ask them, "Are you comfortable? Or are you not comfortable?" You go to the first. You go to how many people do you have to a room? 1 or 2 on your floor?
It depends.
Okay. Well, let's say that it's slow, and every you got 10 rooms, and every room has 1 person in it.
Okay, that's 10 people.
Instead of asking 10 people, you're going to ask every second person. So you start at the end of the hall, and you skip the first room, and you pick the second person. Are you comfortable? Yes. Then you skip the next person, and you ask the next one, 4th person. Okay. That's every second person. That's systematic. Okay.
And it has to do with surveys?
Or well, you can, most of the time, that's how you get information. 90 or 80% of the time in statistics, you get information by either a tally or a survey. Okay? Or a poll. Technically, you were asking a poll. You were doing a poll because you were just asking one question.
Okay.
Are you comfortable? So you were doing a poll. All right? Now, what other kinds are there? Observational. Wait a minute. That's not right. That's not right. Let me go to a blank sheet. Well, let me go to the book. Let me go to the book. In fact, I'm going to use the 103 book because a lot of you don't realize this, but the 103 book is exactly like the 120 book.
That's not funny.
Okay, I'll be quiet. All right, here we go. I like to use these pictures. All right, here's a simple random sample. The computer goes in, and you've got the whole phone book in the computer. and the computer just picks one telephone number out of all those names. That is a random sample. Now see, this book calls it a simple random sample. I disagree with that, but I could be using a book next semester and they separate the random sample and the simple random sample. So you just got to remember that in some applications, the simple random sample is a group. All right. Here is systematic. Here's a good picture for you, Miss Dennis. You ask every third person if they're comfortable or not. That is a systematic random sample.
Okay.
In other words, there is a what? A system, a pattern. The other is these two right here. This one, and write this down because, oops, dadgummit. How did I do that?
That caveman.
Yeah, that was a caveman. There we go. All right. Convenience sample is the least used because it's the least accurate. Write that down. Convenience sample is the least used because it's the least accurate. Why? Well, anything convenient as far as work goes, think about it. Some of the times when you do stuff conveniently at work, does it turn out good or bad? Most of the time when you're cutting edges, it comes back and bites you. Sometimes convenience is not good. When you're talking about a work situation or you're talking about quality of a product or you're talking about probability and statistics. Sometimes convenience cannot be good. Now, if you're talking about buying a loaf of bread at the convenience store because you don't want to go through the hassle of the grocery store, that's different. Because there are a lot of days I love going to the grocery store. But there's some days I don't want to go nowhere around the grocery store. Usually that's on Saturday and Sunday. I despise to go to the grocery store on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, because everybody's brother is at the grocery store. So what I do is I go at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. That's when all the stupid people are still sleeping. Okay. And when I mean stupid people, I mean stupid people that I can't be around. All right. You know, people that try to bring their dogs into the grocery store. That I cannot handle. I'm sorry. And if one of their dogs ever bites me, I'm going to sue the heck out of both the store and the owner, because there's no reason for you to have a damn dog in the grocery store. I'm sorry. All right. But anyway, that's convenient. When you go by a filling station and get a loaf of bread or a 2-liter drink, sometimes I just need a 2-liter drink. I'm sorry, soda pop. And I will go by the convenience store before I go by Ingles. And some days I go by Walgreens instead of going to Ingles. I just don't want to have to go in to that big store and deal with people that I can't be around. All right. Now, in a convenience setting like that, convenience is okay. But when you're talking about work or a project or a survey or something like that, convenience is not good all the time. Now, stratified. Stratified is when you intentionally break up your group. Like, let's say that I go to Miss Dennis's voting precinct where she lives, and I go to her voting precinct, and I survey everybody that comes out of her voting precinct, and I ask them if they are Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, and then male or what? Female. That is called stratified. I'm making it bigger, Miss Dennis. Just hold on. There you go.
I'm trying to see it.
What?
You can see me trying to look at it.
Yeah, I pay attention to my students, even if I don't like them. So there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. For y'all that don't wonder, Miss Dennis had took a class from me last semester, so that's why I pick on her a lot. And she's not a snowflake, so she can handle it. Or a buttercup, whichever one you want to be called. I don't particularly like either one of those names, but that's what our society is becoming. The United States of pansies and buttercups.
At least 2 strata. That's what it's called? Strata.
Yeah, stratified. Strata means groups.
Oh, okay.
Remember, when you go up in math, you have to hold your pinky up, Miss Dennis. You have to call things that are redneck, you have to call them sophisticated names.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up knowing the word group, but now that's not good enough. You need to use the word strata.
Okay.
So you sound sophisticated at parties. Y'all think I'm crazy. You would be surprised on how many people use words that they don't need to use in a setting like a reception. Oh my gosh. I quit going to conferences because of the receptions. You go to the receptions and people are trying to impress each other, and it's just, I just go down to the bar and watch the football game. All right, next. That takes, here we go. Bias. Why is that word so important in this book, in this probability and statistics?
Because
What does it mean? What does bias mean?
you're prejudiced toward one side or the other.
Say again?
You're prejudiced toward one side or the other.
Exactly. You lean into one side. All right? You're leaning to one side. You can't do that. That's like a doctor that'll only tell you good news. And then you go home and die or get sick because they only told you the good stuff. Or a judge that only rules for certain people. Or a referee that only calls for certain, well, if you're a Clemson fan, all the referees are against you because Clemson fans are, I ain't gonna say nothing. I'm not talking about people that support Clemson. I'm talking about the people that are crazy. All right. Anytime Clemson loses, it's the referee's fault. Them referees did this. Them referees did this. You need a life and you need medication. Lord have mercy. Anyway, bias is when somebody is leaning toward a certain way. Now I'm going to show you something Mark Twain said. Anybody know the quote Mark Twain said about statistics? And I bet somebody out there is going, who's Mark Twain? Please don't ask that question. If you ever ask that question, people are going to look at you like you're crazy. All right? And what do they say? What does Mark Twain say? There are lies, there are damn lies, and then there's what?
Statistics.
Statistics. And what he was saying was a person that uses statistics in a negative way, like to get their point across, is just as bad as a liar. And just as bad as a liar that lies on top of lies. That's what a damn liar is. Okay, so you have people that lie. You have people that lie on top of lies on top of lies. And then you got people in statistics that don't use it the correct way. And I tell all my classes this, when I'm talking about bias, I sit on the land use board. I'm the chairman of the land use board. Miss Dennis, don't say a word. And we had this come up one time, and this guy was wanting to use a piece of property. He divided his property up into usable pieces, and there was one piece left in between two roads. It looked like a V. And the property was less than a half an acre. Well, DHEC, you have to have a half an acre or more to put a septic tank in. All right. And there was something in the provisions that if the county said it's okay, then DHEC would go with it because there was something about the provisions. And so it came before the land use board, and we had the public, the people that lived around this gentleman, they talked, and every one of them said, he's going to put a mobile home on it. He's going to put a mobile home on it. He's going to put a trailer on it. And I don't want that riffraff around my house. Okay? Well, what they didn't know, and that's why you need to watch what you say, because I lived in a mobile home for 10 years before I built my house. And a lot of people live in mobile homes. Okay? That wasn't the point. He could put a strip club on that little piece of property for all we cared. All we were voting on was the septic tank issue. And I told the people, I said, the question is not whether he can put a septic tank on this property, or a mobile home on this property. It's whether he can put a septic tank. And we turned it down because DHEC was going to turn it down probably because of the shape of the property and the topography of the property. It wasn't right. And that's no bias. That's no bias. When you do a project or when you're in a setting at work, you have to be right down the middle. All right? It's when you're in a quality assurance setting. You can't lean one way or the other, because that's not doing your project any good, and it's not doing the people any good that you're going to present this to, whether it's a CEO or whether it's a department or whatever the case may be. You don't do things like that. Now, why is the word bias used so much right now? Because there are some people that believe that when we're talking about magazines and newspapers and television, there is a bias out there. And some people believe there is, and some people believe there's not. The word bias is very important, not only for you on a test, but it's for you in case you ever get put in a position to where you need to be neutral. The opposite of bias is neutral. Think of a judge or an umpire or a referee. They have to be neutral. And it's very difficult to be neutral sometimes. Very difficult. There was one time that a person came before the land use board, and he was my cousin. And I had to abstain because I had to tell the board that he was my cousin, and I couldn't vote on it, because I would naturally vote for him because he was my cousin. Unless he was doing something real illegal, I had to abstain from voting because you don't do things like that. Okay. Y'all good? Y'all understand bias?
Yes.
A lot of people say, well, why'd you spend 15 minutes on that word? Because it's very important. Very. All right. And it needs to stick in your brain. That's why. All right. Next, we're going to talk about there's bias and experimental. Yeah, here we go. Observational and experimental. Oh, these blinds get on my nerves. Go ahead and be writing some of that down right quick, and I'm going to try to fix those blinds. Yeah, I think I got it fixed. At least till the cats come by and mess with it. Now, let's say that I see it outside of, I'm going to pick somebody I can aggravate. Let's see, Miss Owens. I'm going to pick on you, Miss Owens. Let's say I sit outside Miss Owens' house and I watch her house every day for 24 hours for 3 weeks. And I write down when she leaves. I write down when she comes home. I write down how many people go into her house. What would you say that was?
Pervert.
Pervert. There we go, right there. Now, why do I use that word? Because it will stick in your brain. Perv will stick in your brain with observational study. What am I doing to Miss Owens? I'm watching her.
You stalking
And that's what you do when you do an observational study. You just watch. You just sit there and watch. What, Miss Dennis?
You stalking her.
Yeah. No, stalking her would be actually walking behind her and, you know, going to her Facebook page and doing that kind of stuff. Y'all ain't never seen stalking movies? Stalking is when you actually follow the person. Perv is just watching. Okay, like Michael Myers. He just watched the house, and then he pounces. All right, sleep apnea. Miss Owens, you still there? You didn't say anything. I figured you would have said something.
I said something. Y'all can hear me?
Sleep apnea. Sleep apnea patients, usually the first couple of days, when you tell the doctor something's wrong with your sleeping habits, they might actually put you in a room with a video camera, and for a couple of days, you spend the night in that room. No, not the whole day. You just come in like late at night, or like 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and when you get ready for bed, you go to bed in their room, and they watch you, and they put monitors on your heart, your lungs, and all that stuff, and they find out, or they put a mask on you or whatever, and they find out that you have sleep apnea. Now that is basically a observation. Observation is when you just watch. Now, what if that person snored, and whenever that person snored, I took a cattle prod and electrocuted that person? That would be what? An experiment.
Experimental.
Experiment. An experiment, yes, experimental, is when there is interaction or some kind of interjection. Now, I didn't have to touch him or her. What if every time they snored, I hit a button and it sprayed cold water on their face whenever they snored? That would be experimental. I didn't enter the room, but I did something to interject into the observation. Now, that's the difference between the two. Now, if you want to read the definition, there is the definition. Researchers observe or measure characteristics of the sample members, but do not attempt to influence or modify those characteristics. In an experiment, researchers apply treatment to some or all of the sample members and then observe the effects of the treatment. There you go. One watches, one interjects. Well, that's what I told you. Now, if you're doing an observational study, think of sleep apnea, or if you're doing an experiment, let's say the mouse in a maze. If you're doing those two things, what are you trying to find out? Cause and effect. Cause and effect. How many of you have seen the Matrix movies? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, one person. Thank you, Miss Lusk. I appreciate you interacting with me. I don't believe that. I think there's more people in here, but they're winged on a pickle and they don't talk to anybody, except for Miss Dennis. All right. In the second Matrix movie, the three main characters, Morpheus, Trinity, and Neo, they walk into a French restaurant. And they talk to the French owner of the French restaurant, and the French owner is talking in French accent. And he goes, Cause and effect. That's why you're here. Everything cause and effect. I drink too much wine. I have to pee. Now, he says that in the movie. Now, in South Carolina, you drink too much beer, you have to pee. The whole point is you do something, there's something that happens. That's cause and effect. Now, sleep apnea, you stop breathing because your brain is not communicating with your lungs on an involuntary basis. It's cause and effect. The effect, you stop breathing. Okay? So they have to figure out, or they have to put oxygen in your, they have to figure that out. That's what the doctors do. All right? Give me another cause and effect. If you load your car down with luggage and people, what will happen to the gas mileage? That means I want y'all to interact with me.
You'll get less miles for your gas.
You'll get less gas mileage. In other words, the gas mileage will decrease. Cause and effect. Let me think of another one. If you study every day for 2 hours, your grades will do what? Probably go up. Cause and effect. If you go out every night and drink until you pass out, naturally you're not going to do as well in school. We are a product of our own decisions and choices. So, cause and effect. In statistics, it's called explanatory versus response. In math, it's called input, domain, or output, range. In an ice machine, water turns to what? Ice. X-axis, Y-axis. Independent, dependent. So in mathematics and in real life, you have cause and you have effect. Any questions on cause and effect?
No.
So experimental, the mouse in the maze, I put a piece of cheese to the right side of the maze, and the exit to the maze is on the north side. So naturally, the mouse is going to smell the cheese, and he's going to go to the cheese. Cause, the cheese. Effect, the mouse doesn't get out of the maze because he's eating the cheese, or he smells the cheese. Question on cause and effect. It can be with observational, or it can be with experimental. You're going to have a cause, and you're going to have an effect. I drink too much wine, I have to pee. That makes it stick. Hopefully you will remember that slogan, and you'll say cause and effect. Now, we're going to talk about lurking variable, and we're going to talk about confounding. Let's say that I work at a movie theater, and for 2 months, I write down the data for the Nicolas Cage movie Con Air. Now, some of you have seen Con Air, and thankfully, since there was good acting in it, Nicolas Cage had a hit because he's not a good actor. Did you know that Nicolas Cage and Adrian on Rocky were cousins? Did you know that?
What?
They belong to the same family. They belong to the Cortese family. You know the director Cortese in Hollywood? Well, that's how you can get in movies. If your uncle is a director, you get into movies. Anyway, Con Air and the ticket sales look like that with a correlation factor of 0.82. Suicide rates in Anderson for the last 2 months have been a correlation of 79. So does this mean that if you watch a Nicolas Cage movie, you're going to commit suicide? Yes or no?
No,
No.
Why?
because there could be something else to do with the suicide rate.
Exactly. Common sense. Common sense. A movie is not going to make you commit suicide. Just like watching violent movies is not going to make me go out and shoot somebody. Okay? There's got to be something else going on in your brain for you to go out and shoot somebody. Just arbitrarily take a gun and shoot somebody. All right? A movie is not going to make you do that. It's like a song is not going to make you do that. You got issues before that song ever entered your brain. All right? This is compounding. This does not have anything to do with this. Use a little bit of common sense. All right? What about this? Let's say that you, and I may have asked this before, I can't remember, and we may be going over the same thing, but you've got a 0.86 correlation coefficient with drowning deaths, and you've got a 0.82 correlation coefficient on Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Does that mean that they have anything to do with each other? Do they?
No.
Yes, they do. And it's called a lurking variable. Write this down. Lurking variable. What is the lurking variable here? What is? Do you go swimming, Miss Dennis? When you go swimming, do you go swimming in December and January?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess Miss Dennis is a little bit on the crazy side.
I'm going to why?
You know what I'm talking about? Outside.
Oh, no, I don't swim outside even in the
Okay.
summertime.
Do you get ticks on you in the middle of January?
Get what?
No. Ticks don't like cold weather.
I don't mind cold weather.
Okay, look. Hot weather months. What do people do in the hot weather months? They go what?
They cool
Outside.
off.
They go outside more. Therefore, they go to the lake. They go hiking around the lake. They pick up ticks, and there is a correlation between drowning deaths and Rocky Mountain spotted fever, because not that they cause each other, but they're both in the hot water months. People get out, they pick up ticks, dogs, your dog that you take to the store that's going to bite somebody, that they have ticks on them. You're also outside enough to go swimming. You go swimming, you might drown. But you're not going to drown in December because you're not going swimming outside. Okay? Now you may drown in a pool. Okay? But you're not going to drown in a lake in December because hopefully you ain't stupid enough to be in the lake in daggum 30-degree weather. So this is called a lurking variable.
I still don't
Let's see if
understand
they're
why.
talking about a lurking variable. What?
I don't understand why that has to do with lurking. What does that mean?
Lurking means that you don't think of it. In other words, when I asked y'all, does these have anything to do with each other? Some of y'all said no. Okay, so lurking means that you have to think about it. Here, is there any lurking variable in a Nicolas Cage movie and suicide rates? No. The only thing I can come up with is that you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend and you needed to get out of the house, so you decided to go to a movie and you watched the Nicolas Cage movie, and there was a scene in there that made you more depressed, and you got more depressed, and your chemicals got imbalanced and you committed suicide. Now, how does that measure up with common sense, Miss Dennis? Doesn't.
Mm-mm.
All right? It doesn't. Where this has something in common. Now, you have to think a little bit, Miss Dennis. You have to analyze and say, is there anything in common with swimming at a lake and cases of Rocky Mountain spotted fever? And you have to think a little bit. You have to think outside the box. Well, they're both outside. And why are they outside a lot? Because it's warm. That's a little bit of thinking goes into it. And you have to develop that thinking, Miss Dennis. I'll tell you what. You ever watched L.A., what's it called, Law and Order? You ever watched Law and Order?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the difference between a rookie cop and a cop that's been on the beat for 50 years or 30 years? What's the difference between the two?
The experience.
There you go. And this is developed with experience. This is developed knowing that there's no correlation. That is developed with experience. Capiche?
I guess so. I'm gonna get that one wrong.
Yeah, you ain't gonna get it wrong. You're gonna get it right. Quit saying that. All right, next, let's see what time it is before y'all go into convulsions. Let's see, what time's class over? Somebody tell me the truth, please.
11:05.
A what?
11:05.
Well, why didn't y'all say something? Gosh.
Because
You were on a roll. You were on a roll,
Stop
Hubert. We
recording.
couldn't stop you.